Hello, I am the Atheist Paladin, and I'm responding to the Amazing Atheist video on constitutionalism. And he says several things that I have to respond to. I don't think he understands what exactly he is critiquing. I've tried to do it before, but my cam studio, point by point, so with my cam studio, but it didn't want to mesh the sound, so I'll just have to do it this way. So I guess you'll just have to tolerate a picture of the Constitution. But to continue on, one of the first things I like to address is that, well, we agree on just about many things here. I agree that the founding fathers were not, they were not infallible people, and that they even violated the Constitution. And one of the examples he brought up was the Whiskey Rebellion. Man, if there was a whiskey party today, I'd probably join it. But the whole thing is of course, yeah, they violated the Constitution. And I mean, I can bring up another example myself, such as the Alien and Sedition Acts. That was a clear-cut violation of the First Amendment, and it was done by our founding fathers. Yeah, they were flawed people. But when somebody's saying, is there a constitutionalist, a strict constitutionalist, this is sort of in speak, so I don't blame him for not understanding what that means. What a strict constitutionalist is we're saying he's an originalist in the interpretation of the Constitution. So if it comes to an issue that we are interpreting or we're enforcing the Constitution, then we should use the original language and the original meaning of the intent to govern the following actions. And there are actually different camps of people who interpret the Constitution. Some take a literalist approach, and others take a sort of living document approach. And that's what a strict constitutionalist is to differentiate from. We're not reading the document as it would be in our own language. Let's take, for example, there was a constitutional amendment that says you cannot pick up fags on Sundays. Well, back in the day, fags meant a bundle of sticks. So back in the day, you would not be able to pick up a bundle of sticks. How will we interpret this in our new language? Well, you'd probably say that gay bars cannot be open on Sundays or something like that. That would be sort of a living document approach. Well, originalist says, well, this is how it should be read, interpreted, and enforced. That's really all it's saying. I know it's a funny example, but I think it's a clear-cut example of how language changes. So that means a world of difference in how to interpret something and how to enforce the Constitution. So that's what a strict constitutionalist means. Now what the meat of the heart of the matter is that it doesn't mean that we somehow think that the document's perfect, or even if with that, why do we take this stance with the Constitution? Why is it important? It's basically a political philosophy. And what it comes down to is that governments do change all the time over history. But what this very strict approach, especially it being very hard to change, is it keeps the government from being too volatile, basically. So if the government can do whatever it wants just because it has achieved just a mere majority, just over 51%, then that sort of creates, a tyranny of the majority. And then the government will become very volatile. That's why we think that the Constitution should not change unless it absolutely has to. You have to have that 3/4 of majority for a reason. And now we look at across history. Why is that such a bad way of approaching it anymore? I mean, he mentioned Thomas Jefferson's rewriting the Constitution every 19 years or whatever. I never heard of that one, so maybe he's educating me on something when it comes to this issue. But if even that were the case, what should a mere majority be the approval of the Constitution? And I have to say, hell fucking no. And that's because just think about in the last 10 years how quickly Congress has changed from being Republican under Bush to being Democrat under Bush, and then from being Democrat under Obama to being back into Republican under Obama. We have gone back and forth from these swings very quickly. And to say the Constitution be hostage to something like that, I find that very hard to think that that would be a good means of a constitutional government. I think the 3/4 is a good idea, and is all the way it ought to be. And of course, the Constitution is a compromise of several things. One of the things he's left off is, what he brings up is the senators. Why would somebody, the state of Wyoming would have equal power as somebody who is in California? And yet California is a bigger population state. Well, the whole point of the senators is to keep from the smaller states being bullied by the bigger states, basically. It was to prevent the tyranny of the majority from the bigger states. So it was basically a check and balance against the states' populations and the states being represented as entities on their own, basically. So that's why that it's that way. And I don't think he wasn't aware of a nuance like that. If you go back and you look at the Federalist Papers and you look at the debate between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, really those names should be swapped, but there's a whole other reason behind that. But it's basically your Federalists back then were people who were basically the states' rights people today. And it was all that whole debate of basically keeping, how much power should the federal government or the national government have versus, how much power should the states have and what do they do? That's the whole point of the Constitution. It's supposed to, write that all out. So of course the Constitution is a compromise, and I think we should continue to compromise on the Constitution as we become more enlightened. But we cannot have that be held hostage to by a mere majority. As I've stated, this is already a volatile thing, and I think the 3/4 works perfectly fine. It's worked in the past. Women's suffrages came through, civil rights came through. So I don't think that this system is broken yet.